new place, and the first thing I brought is my herbs. Stay tuned. Okay, so this is where my apothecary is at right now. I have my 7 core herbs, and I have the 10 along the outskirts that I don't use as often. Okay, so I've got mullein, this is leaves, mullein flowers, mint, sweet fern, goldenrod, red and white clover, fresh, harvested, rather than dead harvested, which I have on the outskirts, over here, and yarrow. Okay, I'm going to start off by saying that with the exception of 3 of these, I harvested all of these. This mint I bought, it was out of season. This mint was given to me by my friend Scott, that he harvested himself, and sage I bought. So other than that, I harvested all the others, and you know, some have more in them than others. This is mint. Stuff smells absolutely brilliant. Man, oh man, good stuff. Mason jars work really well to store your herbs for your apothecary storage. You know, my hoard is pretty small. It's only 17 herbs, but you know, this is where it's at right now, and that's just how it is. You know, it's only going to get bigger. Now, the good thing about this is that it's a great trade to get into, because you know, you're practicing making medicine. You know, you're practicing you know, making medicine through infusions or decoctions, you know, poultices, things like that. I don't like to do tinctures because I haven't been able to make alcohol in the woods yet, you know. So, you know, I try to stick to things that I can handle, you know, things that I can do in the woods. You know, all of these working out for me in civilization right now, all these jars, keeping my herbs really good. You know, mullein leaves looking good in there. But in the woods, this can all very well be replaced by other containers. You know, wood containers carved, you know, with stoppers, you know, tops. Birch bark containers, a combination of wood and birch bark. You know, wood at the bottom and the top with a birch bark wrap in the middle. I mean, tons of different containers. Clay containers. These could be also hides that I've either tanned or not. Doesn't really matter. Each one will have its own benefits, you know. One is I really can't get wet, and the other one, if I leave the fur on, it will be a little more water resistant. So, you know, you can use buckskin, things like that. You can use wood, you can use clay, you can use natural materials like birch bark. You know, tons of different ways to simulate this in the woods, or rather these are simulating that. So mason jars, super easy to use, and I have a pretty good little collection here. So I'll go over my core 7 right now. So I've got mullein, which are leaves. Okay. I've got mullein flowers. I have some mint. I've got red and white clover mixed, and these are fresh that I grabbed. I grabbed them while they're still living. Everything else I grabbed living, but I actually have some red and white clover on the outskirts here that I actually gathered dead. I wanted to see if there was a difference when I smoked them, and there definitely is. Goldenrod, which is a new favorite of mine. Sweet fern, which has always been a long time favorite. And yarrow. Okay, so that's the 7 core herbs in my apothecary right now. I'm looking forward to expanding on this, because right now we're still at the tail end of winter. So all my stock is incredibly low. You know, my mullein flowers, you know, that's it right there. I bet there's not more than 12 or 15 in there, you know. When at one time it was a couple inches up. you know, my mint. You know, I smoke a ton of sweet fern and mint and goldenrod. And I also smoke a ton of yarrow, so much so that I basically had to stop so I can make sure I still have some, you know. There's not too many leaves left in there. Can't be more than maybe 8 or 10, you know. So definitely getting low on the stocks here. Really looking forward to some plants coming back for me. I still have a good amount of mullein, and that's because I just had such a huge amount of mullein. It's so easy. You know, you can grab 6, 7 leaves out of a couple different plants, so you don't denude one plant, right? And that would fill up this jar practically. It's, you know, the leaves can be massive. They can be a foot long. So mullein leaves are really easy to get a ton of. Some of these are a little harder to get a lot of, you know. Sometimes you find a good patch. Like for my yarrow, I found a great patch. You know, sometimes you just luck out, you know. But you have to be very conscientious of taking too much, you know. I never take more than 30%. It's very important. And we'll go over that in another video, but that's really all I'm entitled to, 30%. Okay, so by having a stock like this, you know, you can really craft a bunch of different things, you know. So let's go over the outside, and you know, you can start to see that the selection of herbs in my store is very varied. So it allows me to do a bunch of different things. So I have the mint that was gathered for me. Okay, I already talked about that. I have apple leaves. Oh, by the way, this mint that was gathered for me is like chock full. Awesome. Sassafras leaves. Blueberry. Dewberry. Black or sweet birch. Got a bunch in there. Interesting note is that these particular leaves, these are all gathered from Walden Pond in Concord, Mass, which is where Henry David Thoreau wrote a incredibly famous book called Walden. If you guys don't know about him, check him out. It's definitely a fantastic book. Basically, a guy decided to go live in the woods. You know, he was like high class, high society, Harvard and all that. Friends with Emerson. And Emerson actually owned, Ralph Waldo Emerson, actually owned that land. So they were good friends, and he let him squat on his land, and he built a house. And I mean, like, shingles and everything, you know. And he got like reclaimed windows and a bunch of reclaimed wood. I mean, he didn't just go buy it, you know. I mean, he cut trees down with an axe. He borrowed the axe in the first place, you know, and he gave it back sharper than when he got it. Gotta love that. But anyways, I was out visiting the site of where his house used to be, and where his chimney foundation still exists. His house ended up burning down a couple years after he moved out of the woods. But there's a replica built now nearby. But anyways, so on the path, you know, right next to, you know, on the way, you know, right next to the water, on the way to his house, was a really nice sweet birch or black birch, whatever you want to call it. So I have a lot of personal connections with these herbs, you know, and that's what happens in your apothecary. You have a connection because you gather them yourself. You know, you took care of them. You know, there's like a relationship there. So I think that kind of gives strength to them in a way. You know, it's not just something I bought online or something. You know, these mullein flowers, I remember gathering them. I remember where I gathered them. So just how it is, you know. You just kind of actually remember specific plants, you know. And I think that more than anything else, herbalism in general, whether it be for edible plants or medicinal plants, really connects you with specific, exact plants. You know what I mean? You know, I remember where I gather these blueberry leaves. You know, the exact plants. I can go walk up to that plant again. It's like, hey man, I remember you. Like, I have some of you at home. You know what I mean? It's like you, that one right there. You know what I mean? So by doing that, it actually, you know, it actually like forms a bond between you and exact plants, you know. And I really don't know anything else that does that. There's really nothing else I know, you know. And it really kind of starts with you, say, finding a really nice blackberry patch or raspberry patch or blueberry patch, whatever the case is. And you find like just one monster shrub that puts out a ridiculous amount, like autumn olive over here I got, you know. The autumn olive I found one, actually it was two, but one was exceptional, even beyond the other one. I found two that were amazing, but I found one that was like above and beyond every other autumn olive I've ever found. And I remember that exact plant. I remember where it is. I can go to it whenever I want, you know? And having this is kind of like a way to recollect where specific plants are, you know? So anyways, let's go around the gamut on the outside. So we have mint that my buddy gave me, apple, sassafras, blueberry, dewberry, black and sweet birch, autumn olive, chokecherry, red and white clover, dead, and sage. Okay, so having an apothecary is incredibly important because if I need any of these, I have them, you know? I don't have to go try to find a plant, you know? What if it's not even in season? And, you know, I'm not going to get that plant. So I don't have to go find a plant. I don't have to go pick pieces off the plant. Then I don't have to bring them to a spot to dry them, back to camp or back to my house or whatever the case is. You know, it's like by having them on hand, it allows you to instantly deal with the situation, you know. If you cut yourself really bad and you have to use yarrow, well, I have that, you know what I mean? It's there, it's ready to go. Just how it is, you know, you have a stock of herbs ready to go, and I think that's incredibly important. You can do this in your rucksack on the fly. You know, I've shown in some of my videos how I use a bandana and I roll herbs up in them. You know, I'll put a bandana, roll it a couple inches past it, put another herb, roll over it, another herb. I have 3-4 herbs in a single bandana, all rolled up. So on the fly, I can just unroll things and find what I need to, you know what I mean? So I usually have, you know, between 4, 5, 6 different herbs on me in my bag at all times. So when you have a collection of herbs like this, it really grants you a lot of leisure as well, you know? I can smoke excellent bush pipes whenever I want, you know, and we're getting towards the end here, you know, and we're at the very end of winter, so a lot of the stuff's really small, but it's still here, you know. I'm not out of anything, and I've been able to make things stretch. So there's just something really satisfying with having a stockpile like this, you know, because I can make teas whenever I want. I can make sweet fern, which is an amazing tea, you know. It's also really good for poison ivy. But I can do mint and sweet fern teas, or I can smoke some mullein and some clover. You know, and this is a winter's day. You know, there could be 2-3 feet of snow on the ground, and I'm just relaxing next to a fire, smoking some sweet fern or smoking some goldenrod, you know, that hasn't been seen in that area for months, you know. And it's just a really satisfying feeling, being able to enjoy things and enjoy things out of season because you put it aside, right? And and that concept is very important to practice because it ties in with everything else. It ties in with putting acorns aside, right? It ties in with making sugar in the woods out of maple sap. You turn it into syrup, you boil it down into sugar, and you put the sugar aside, right? So way out in the middle, months later of a different season, you still have a little left and you can enjoy it. And it really, really lifts you, you know what I mean? It's like bringing back an old friend. Can you just imagine living in the woods and you haven't had anything sweet? Say you ran out of your stockpile of blueberry fruit leather and raspberries and all these things, So there's no strawberries left, nothing. It's February and you haven't seen these things in 5-6 months. Gone. You haven't had anything sweet in 6 months, And it's February or March, and then you make some maple syrup. And you make some toffee and sugar. I mean, how good is that toffee going to be? How good is that sugar going to be when you add it, to your sweet fern or mullein tea? I mean, we're talking primo. Can you even imagine? Can you imagine how substantial that was, the impact it had on people's well-being, So I think having an apothecary is incredibly important because it creates a different attitude towards nature. Plants become very important. Plants become friends. Plants become memorable. It's not just a plant, it's the plant. I remember the sweet fern from here. You know what I mean? I remember the chokecherry that I got this from. So I just wanted to share my little collection with you guys, and hopefully I've planted some seeds. Let's see. Sweet fern. Goldenrod. So much your name, Survival. Appreciate your views, comments, and support. See you in the next one. Take care.